Freeport-McMoRan is a leading international mining company. The health and safety of our workforce, host communities, and the environment is fundamental to everything we do.
We're consistently finding ways to reduce risk and improve our operations, while we strive to keep our local communities informed about our work. In this video, we'll talk about our extensive tailings management processes and approach. Tailings are the finely ground natural rock particles, or byproducts, that remain after the economically valuable materials have been removed through processing and extraction in our mined ore. Typically, tailings are transported from processing facilities in slurry form via pipelines to the TSFs, or tailings storage facilities.
TSFs are usually made up of one or more embankments and are often constructed from the tailing material themselves. They really have two fundamental purposes. One, store the tailings safely and responsibly, and two, to allow us to reclaim water that can be reused in our processing facility.
Our TSFs are designed, constructed, operated, monitored, and maintained to minimize human and environmental impacts.
Each facility is tailored to the conditions of its specific site, meeting all regulatory requirements and using international best practices throughout that facility's life cycle.
We analyze every location before starting to build a new TSF.
This way, we determine the safest and most effective sites and use the most appropriate technology for that location.
We look at several factors like geology, topography, climate, hydrogeology, seismicity, to name a few. And we also look at the material that's being used for the construction of those embankments.
In the United States, we have historically constructed many of our facilities using what's called the upstream embankment design.
We continue to use this design based on site-specific factors and our very deep understanding of their good performance. Many of our TSFs were constructed decades ago, and our expert tailings management team gives ongoing, committed attention to the full life cycle of all of our TSFs.
The team conducts regular inspections and risk assessment, as well as comprehensive periodic site investigations, all supplemented by external review.
And finally, we stay engaged with our stakeholders, our partners, regulatory bodies throughout the life cycle of this process.
This level of attention to detail is why Freeport has an outstanding safety record. But in the unlikely event of an emergency, it's important that our communities are prepared and engaged.
A variety of factors can cause TSF failures, including extreme seismic activity, erosion, or substantial storm events. We design our TSFs to withstand the most extreme of those events.
We also ensure that our teams are trained in emergency response in the event of any type of failure.
Freeport is also supporting and implementing the new Global Tailings Standard. The first principle of this tailings standard is to respect the rights of project-affected people and to meaningfully engage them at all phases of a tailings facility's life cycle. This extends to all stakeholders, including our local communities, landowners, indigenous people, community-based organizations, local government, and regulators. In accordance, we're dedicated to open conversations with our communities close to our TSF operations.
The tailings standard includes a consequence classification system. People commonly confuse the word risk with consequence. Risk is the combination of likelihood times consequence. The consequence system isn't based on the likelihood or probability of a credible failure, but rather focuses on the consequence of a credible failure.
It focuses first on the impacts a failure could have on people. And then it also includes environmental, health, social, cultural, infrastructure, and economic impacts.
Using risk assessment results, each facility is assigned a consequence classification. Sites with a higher consequence classification will have further engagement. This engagement includes partnering with emergency response and preparedness organization, local government leaders, and holding conversations with members of the local communities.
As stated, the likelihood of an event is extremely low, and Freeport is constantly analyzing ways to minimize both the likelihood and consequence of a potential failure.
One good example of how we do that is what we call internally a bias for action. We have taken information at facilities that suggests there is the potential for one of those credible failure modes to occur. We take action, we go talk to the regulatory agencies, get their approval to stabilize that facility and drop the likelihood and the consequence of that potential failure. Nothing is more important to us than the safety of our people, communities, and environment. And we strive to continuously manage, enhance, and innovate our tailings systems to minimize impacts. Our objective is to have 0 fatalities, 0 catastrophic failures, and 0 unplanned discharges from any of our tailings facilities.
We're committed to continually improving our TSFs through internal and external assessments, public reporting on our performance, and ongoing conversations with our stakeholders.